Welcome to today's Planning and Zoning Board meeting. And one of the things we're going to do first is read the consent agenda. If you need to fill out a blue card on any project, we need to have those up right away because we're going to be reading the consent agenda first. Is there any blue cards? Okay, we need 3C. Okay, 3C is off. Any more?
You have another one that's come this way.
If you want to say something, you can fill out the blue card.
Mm-hmm.
3C.
Go ahead and give us a few minutes. Make sure I'm looking at the right information. Power and McDowell. Is there any other cases besides the Goodwill store? No? Okay, I'll wait for that. $15.37. 15037. Okay, well, I'm having a problem with this one. Is this anywhere on the agenda? Cassandra, which case was this? Because your number's not consistent with what I'm looking at here. Oh, 3-1. Looked like 3-7. Okay, it's the same one. So that's also the Goodwill store. Any others?
I see a couple others too. They're floating in their own.
Is there any other ones besides 3C? Okay. So take the other one off too. And then we can start with the consent agenda.
So that was KB,
Uh-huh.
KB 6A, which is KB, I believe, and then this is
Okay.
yeah, and this is a Goodwill.
Okay, thank you very much. 6A, or in 6, oh, right.
26.
And 31. Okay, I think we're good to go. Board Member Hudson, if you could read the consent agenda with those changes that we discussed in study session and also the ones that was taken off consent.
Okay. 2A, the approval of the minutes from the August 18th and August 19th, 2015 study sessions and regular hearing. Case number Z15-27 in District 6, the 10,900 block of East Pecos Road on the north side, located east of the Signal Butte Road alignment on the north side of the Pecos Road, approximately 4.58 acres. This is a site plan modification and special use permit for fueling pumps. This request will allow the development of a commercial propane facility. Staff recommendation, this case will be continued to our October 21st meeting. Case number Z15-029 in District 3, 1945 and 1955 West University Drive and 345 North Dobson Road, located on the southeast corner of Dobson Road and University Drive, approximately 1 1/4 acres. This is a site plan review and a special use permit. This request will allow the development of a service station with fuel pumps. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions with modification to stipulation 6, reading such that the last portion of the stip shall read, or submit documentation demonstrating their attempts to reach out to the adjacent property owner to have the existing easement removed. Okay, case number Z15-030 in District 2, 6350 East Main Street, located east of Recker Road on the north side of Main Street, approximately 1 acre, rezoned from LC to ID-1 and a site plan review. This request will facilitate infill development on East Main Street. Staff recommendation, this case will be continued to our October 21st meeting. And preliminary plat, Parkwood Ranch Marketplace in District 6, the 10,000 block of East Southern Avenue on the north side, located on the northeast corner of South Crisman Road and East Southern Avenue, approximately 13.13 acres. This request will allow for the subdivision of property approved for retail and office. Staff recommendation is approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I would like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as it was read into the record.
Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Please vote. The consent agenda is approved. All ayes. The next item that we have on our agenda is 3C. This is zoning case Z15031, District 5, 2665 North Power Road, located south of McDowell Road on the east side of Power Road, approximately 2.2 acres. It's a site plan review. This request will allow the development of a retail building within an existing commercial center. And what we're going to do is I'm going to have staff give us a little overview of what the project is, have applicant make a presentation, then let's hear from the people that came to speak on this item. Staff?
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Case Z1531 is located at 2665 North Power Road. The request is for site plan review of a retail building. The tenant of the building is a Goodwill store. I think it is important to note that this hearing is purely for the site plan review. The LC zoning district does allow for retail buildings and retail uses. And in our definition of retail, it does also identify secondhand stores as an allowed use. And that LC zoning district was established in 1988. The request is for a 22,500 square foot building. Of that 22,500 square feet, 14,500 will be utilized for the sale floor. The building is oriented facing the parking lot of the Albertsons while preserving a lot of the natural landscaping. It is in the desert uplands area of Mesa, which has adopted design guidelines, and this site plan and design of the building was reviewed against those design guidelines. Staff is supportive of the request. We do feel that the applicant did provide a very well-designed site plan. They are providing pedestrian connection to the future residential to the south, which will be an amenity to those residents. They also have provided an amenity area on the east side of the building, as shown on the site plan on the screen, that will have some tables, benches that will be for the use of Goodwill employees and also any visitors of the shopping center. So as I stated, it is a site plan review. We are supportive of the request. We do feel that they have done a great job at preserving the natural landscaping and adding a building that really is compatible with the desert uplands.
Okay, great. Is the applicant here? Could you come up to the podium, please? Could you state your name?
Yes, Joshua Bankley, on behalf of CCA Acquisitions.
And your address?
5670 Wilshire Boulevard, Suite 1250, Los Angeles.
Would you prefer to make a presentation or hear the speakers first and then go ahead and speak to their
I
concerns?
think if we could go ahead and hear the speakers, that would be great.
Okay, let's do that. Just want to make sure you're okay with it. Okay, the first speaker on this case looks like a Thomas Hurl, maybe? Does that come close? Huh. They here?
I think that's me. I meant to put down 026. I think I copied the wrong one up there.
You put 031.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be at 026.
What was
Sorry, I think
26?
that was on Sossaman Road. You're talking about Sossaman, right? Sossaman and Southern? Yeah.
Okay, good. We can still put it in the other pile, so we're good. Okay, the next one, this is an easier one to pronounce. Brad Fawcett. Please state your name, your address, and then you have 3 minutes.
What was the last one?
And name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
It's Brad Fawcett, 8442 East Cale Street in the Mountain Bridge subdivision. Is that all you wanted?
That was
All right.
great.
A couple of questions for you. First, why did you guys pick that exact location? I guess either for you or for him. Was there nowhere else you could put a Goodwill?
Me?
I'm saying, how does that look? How does a location like that get picked?
I'm a volunteer.
Versus all the other locations that could be.
I'm not even getting a commission.
No, who makes that choice?
Would have picked the location, so
Okay, and then it was within zoning rights, so that's allowable. In terms of tax revenue, have you guys looked at how much tax revenue a Goodwill generates? Probably nothing, right? Because it's a nonprofit or a charity organization, right? Do we make any money off it from a city standpoint?
I don't know the answer to that, but it's not material to the question before us in terms of site plan. Does it meet the requirements?
So whether or not a huge building like that generates any money for the city that it's going into is not material?
Not to the question before the board, no.
Okay, so the question before the board is simply, is it look pretty?
Does the site plan meet the ordinance requirements?
Okay, so now whether it brings any value to the community or anything like that. And you guys know that obviously there's 3 Goodwills within 7 miles of that location already, which is one less than how many McDonald's we have, which seems a little odd that we need that many Goodwills, right? Do we need another Goodwill?
Well, it's an allowed use, and we're not allowed to vote to that if we want that use or we don't want that use. We are here to vote on if it's an acceptable site plan and if it's within the general plan and what the aesthetics and what the design is. That's
So
it.
we don't look at the potential impact to home values or anything like that, or what it would do to that area of Mesa potentially?
Not at this hearing.
Okay, so where is that hearing to determine if it's a good use of Mesa? Because we know that's kind of a higher end area there between Mountain Bridge and Las Sendas is probably the most expensive real estate in all of Mesa, right? Nobody's looked at the potential impact a Goodwill would bring to that area?
It's not our responsibility to look at that. What we're doing is looking at the site plan to see if it complies with the zoning requirements, and it does.
Okay, so but nobody looks at the impact of everything around it, the potential negative impact it would have on all of the housing values, which means less salary, less money to the city to where we all make our money and support Mesa.
Yeah, that's Mr. Wesley.
You're saying that that putting a store like that is going to decrease the land value. That's your major concern, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
I'm not going to agree with that because I live near a Goodwill also, and I have seen no impact at all from that store being there. So I think that's more or less a matter of opinion.
Which stores are we referring to? Because all the Goodwill stores within that area are all in.
And it doesn't really, the type of store, we can't really, I think we had discussed, we can't discriminate against what
And
people
also,
there.
what this really is for you just to say it's not a question and answer session of the board. What you're really doing is just within your 3 minutes state your concerns, and then we can have the applicant address it. We can also hear from the other people that came.
Perfect. So my concern is I think it will have a great negative impact or very negative impact on home values in Mountain Bridge and the Las Sendas and all the surrounding homes because of the type of store that it is and where exactly it's going.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one is Cassandra Ayers, and she's a spokeswoman for a group that I cannot read. Kornwassers?
I'm actually here on behalf of the developer.
Okay, I see.
I can wait to the end, or I can go down to the
I'll put you at the end, that's fine. Carrie Salvato, please state your name and your address. It's 3 minutes.
My name is Carrie Salvato. My address is 4335 North Morning Dove Circle. I live in Las Sendas. One point I want to make real quick is your little scrolling bit up on the screen says, support your community and shop Mesa. Give us some retail that we want to shop at. Number two, there is a Goodwill at Greenfield and University, Rucker and Maine, and Maine and Sossaman, all very accessible to the people of the Mesa Uplands. Number three, we have Sunshine Acres, very close by. We all really enjoy supporting that organization. I believe the developer comes from Los Angeles. I would like to know how many other Goodwills that they own or are a part of. Number three or four, I would like to know what needs to be done to appeal. What kind of appeals process is available to the citizens in the area?
Okay. James Traskos, am I close?
Yes, ma'am, Traskos.
Okay. Please come up, state your name, your address at the podium.
Who do I, which eyes do I want me? You first?
Sure.
James Traskos, 2248 North Power
Microphone,
Road.
please.
Close to the microphone, please. Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank the developer. I've got a housing project half a mile down on Power Road that's being
Could you
built.
please speak to the microphone?
You've got a Goodwill store coming in. Where are you taking what are you guys doing to the Mesa to develop that area? It's a beautiful area. I've been there 15 years.
Thank you. Okay, Cassandra, you're up. 3 minutes. Please state your name and address.
Cassandra Ayers. I'm with Buse Gilbert. Our address is 701 North 44th Street, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm here on behalf of the developer, which I thought was Kornwasser, but I think it must be CCNA. We're here to echo the approval from the city staff that this is an allowed use within the general plan. It conforms with the general plan. The use is allowed as a matter of right within the zoning. And the space has been vacant for a long time. I think our client's use is a good use. It will put that property to, it will enhance the overall value of that general shopping center. I would ask the city staff to again clarify that the use of the property is not at issue at this hearing. As I think you've been very clear in saying, but we would ask them to clarify that again. The use is not at issue. The issue here is whether there are any comments to the site plan. So far, I have not heard any comments to the site plan. And our applicant is here if you'd like to ask them any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did the applicant want to address any of those issues, or do you feel that Cassandra pretty much covered it all? Okay.
How many other stores is he a part of? Or is it acquisition?
Please. Yeah, thank you. Okay.
CC Acquisitions, we have about 30 centers in Arizona.
Goodwill centers?
Well, shopping centers. And then as far as Goodwills, we have 4. So, and the last one we just opened up, which actually was about 6 months ago, was down in Yuma. And it's doing a great job. These are tenants that come to us. These are tenants who have identified areas that they want to be in. They understand the demographics. They understand where their other stores are because they obviously don't want to be cannibalizing.
Three others within 5
Please don't talk from, that doesn't work because they can't catch it on the screen.
Sorry. So that's, I guess, short answer there. You know, we have multiple properties in Arizona. We do have Goodwill as a tenant and many of those. And we feel that this is a great use for the site.
So Goodwill came to you because they identified this as a good area for their demographics.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions from the board?
Yeah, I did have a question just to address some of the issues that came forward. I think you know the answers to these. First of all, I'm assuming that you probably have Goodwill under contract, so they have some legal rights to the site now. Is that correct?
Correct.
Secondly, if any of the homeowners are dissatisfied, which some are, and they're asking for a place to voice their opinion, I'm assuming at this point that would be directly to you as the property owner. Is that correct? There's really, what I see is there's really no place for them to go at the city level to stop this, even if they don't like it.
My experience with an issue like this would be if this was a rezoning process and a new use was being allowed or permitted. From my understanding from our team, that it's a permitted and allowed use.
Right.
I'm not sure what other retail endeavors would classify under that as well, and I'm sure there's probably some even lesser valued.
So the point I'm trying to make, I believe, my understanding is the only recourse they would have is to voice their opinion to you as the property owner. The problem is you're pretty well connected to a lease agreement now, something that you can't really change, and the matter at hand really has no impact on what the use is anyway, so it's still a moot question or issue that seems to keep percolating to the
And we have tried to do the best we could to design a high-quality building, to design a parking facility for it that splits it up, breaks up the monotony, maintain the landscaping. I mean, this really is irrespective of the tenant, it's really is a Class A retail.
And to add, I would also agree with that. When I saw the design of the building, I was very pleased compared to what I would anticipate to be a very low-scale, inexpensive construction.
Yeah, concrete block, painted, steel truss.
Yeah, it's really a nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Does the board have any other questions for the applicant?
The only thing that, I guess, comment or question I had is possibly that staff would address what the appeal process is.
If any.
If any.
Yes, thank you, Chair Board Member Allen. There is an appeal process after the decision of whatever the board makes tonight. It does go to city. You need to file written notice to the Planning Division within 15 days. That appeal is heard by City Council. However, as I've stated previously, the zoning is in place. It's been in place since 1988. So,
How do we change that?
that's not for this hearing at this time.
Okay. Any other discussion amongst the board? You're out of order, ma'am. Would the board like to discuss any other the case? Is there a motion regarding this case?
I would like to make a motion that we approve case numbers Z15-31 with approval with conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Please vote.
I'm going home.
The item is approved unanimously. Thank you for everyone that came out and expressed your concerns. Okay, now we will move on to 6A. This is Z1526 in District 5, the 7400 through 7600 blocks of East Southern Avenue on the north side, located at the northwest corner of Sossaman and Southern Avenues, 11.57 acres, rezoned from LCPAD PAD to RSL 2.5 PAD PAD and site plan review. This request will allow for the development of a single residence subdivision. Sean Lake of Pew and Lake is the applicant. And first, I'd like to hear an overview from the staff, then a presentation from the applicant, and then we can go over the comments or the speakers that want to talk to this case.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is a request to rezone the property at the northwest corner of East Southern Avenue and South Sossaman Road from LCPAD PAD to RSL 2.5 PAD PAD to allow for the development of an 81-lot subdivision. It's currently got a site plan approved on this property for a retail shops along Southern Avenue with a mini storage buffering in between the commercial property and the single-family residences to the north. The Mesa 2040 General Plan identifies this site as a continuation of the mixed-use activity district from the existing commercial and industrial developments to the south. It is on the fringe of that area, and it's adjacent to a neighborhood land use group where single-family residences exist. It's expected that this property is going to provide a transition between the commercial and employment uses to the south and the residential. The applicant is proposing a site plan for detached residential cluster homes. On this site, staff is contending that something that is a little more dense and perhaps something that's more along the lines of a townhome development or an attached townhomes or a condominium development would be more appropriate. Based on the general plan mixed use activity district, the appropriate uses that it lists are retail areas, entertainment centers, but also include offices and multi-residential and other supporting uses. Staff found that this property was single-family detached and did not feel that it met that criteria. The board does have the opportunity to take a look at this and determine that maybe it is an appropriate transition because it is on the fringe of that area and it's such a small property. It does give the board the option to approve it without a general plan amendment, even though staff does not consider that it meets the general plan. One of the major issues that's been discussed on this site has been parking. It was discussed at the study session, the two study sessions prior. You do have a revised site plan in front of you that shows some additional parking areas, some conditions of approval that were countered by the applicant that were discussed. Staff is still recommending denial, but if it were to be approved, those conditions we are hoping to be able to discuss and determine
what is this
what would be most
density
appropriate.
on this?
Pardon me?
The density.
It is 7.
7 units per acre. And I'm just, so from my own knowledge, when you get into townhouses and condominiums, what do you consider the average density of those to be?
10 to 12 is typical.
10 to 12.
I think one of the reasons that we were thinking that something in the townhouse, a townhouse might be more appropriate adjacent to the single family. We're not saying that maybe apartments are necessarily the best option here. We were thinking that something maybe that's an attached townhome product sometimes will pull that residential away from the single family to the north. Perhaps it could be designed in such a way that it really provides some activity, pedestrian activity towards Southern, but yet provides a buffer, pulling them actually away from the neighbors a little bit with the attached townhomes. A lot of times that provides open space more along the perimeter. So that pulls it away from the neighbors a little bit, but still provides an opportunity for ownership. It also provides a different type of housing in the area. We have a lot of detached single-family homes in the area. So we're looking at it in the general plan as providing a variety of options. Economic Development also provided a letter stating that that's what they would like to see out here as well. So that's what staff's position is based on.
Okay, great. Applicant would like to make a presentation? You state your name, your address.
I get the routine.
Yeah.
Chairman, board members, my name is Sean Lake, 1744 South Val Vista Drive, Suite 217, right above Costa Vida. It's a pleasure to be here before you. Can we get switched over if that's possible? Do I do that here? Or do they do that behind me? Well, there we go. They're going to do it. Fancy. Let me start out by just talking about some history of this site. I've been around in this area for a very, very long time, having come out here with the old Golden Hills Golf Resort, Arizona Golf Resort, so I've been coming out here since I was probably 4. I'm very familiar with this area and how this has all developed. This property has been designated for commercial for a very long time. However, over the years, commercial has gone elsewhere. We've seen how commercial has developed along the Power Road corridor at Southern with the proliferation of Superstition Springs Mall, the power centers, and really gravitated up and down Power Road. That's where the commercial has gone, and this site has sat for many, many, many retail booms or development booms over the many 50 years that the homes have been built out here with no interest in retail developed at this location. When they first came to me, the property owners, and wanted to do single-family residential, my first call was to economic development for the city of Mesa. And in talking with Mr. Jubiniak, he indicated that, yeah, I agree. Retail is probably not going to happen here, given the office industrial on the south side that was spec built and has been vacant for many, many, many years. I don't see that happening either. So I think residential would be appropriate here. So we moved to the next step of developing a plan. We presented a plan and submitted a pre-application with the city of Mesa. You may be familiar with the process. We submitted a pre-app. 30 days later, we have a pre-app meeting with the staff, and we start working through our site plan. We then submitted a first submittal, got comments from the city staff, and made changes to our plan, and then submitted a second submittal. And then transportation said, we've got concerns with your street design, so we redesigned again and submitted another plan and submitted it. And then we're scheduled before you at the last Planning Commission hearing last month. And at that time, I think a day or two before, we get this letter from Mr. Jubiniak that says, we believe this site is appropriate for multifamily, multi-story workforce housing. You all have a copy of that letter in your packet. By this time, we were a little flabbergasted because we had been working with staff for many months on this project, and this was the first time we're hearing multifamily, multi-story workforce housing. So we immediately continued the case a month so that would give us opportunity to work with staff and work through some of these issues. We also had neighborhood meetings with the neighbors directly adjacent to the north, and we had represented to them that we're proposing a single-family project. We felt it incumbent upon us to let them know what is going on and that the city was wanting to see a multi-family, multi-story project, so we held a neighborhood meeting. We also went back and evaluated the area. What is the reality of multifamily apartments, condos, townhomes occurring in this area? And we did an analysis. We also worked with the Superstition Springs HOA and the adjacent neighbors and identified there are quite a few multifamily projects and workforce housing in this area. KB doesn't build multifamily type projects of workforce housing. They build the hybrid that we're talking about today, which is kind of a combination between single family and patio homes, but you get the benefit of detached housing. What you find when you're selling these patio homes and townhomes is people like them because of the low maintenance and low yard, but they don't like to share a common wall. And so this design gets you into the density that you typically would see with a patio or townhome at 7 units to the acre, but still gives you the benefits of a detached housing. So we thought this would be a good solution, so we worked with the staff. The neighbors then called us and said, we've gone out and we've walked the neighborhood. And a lady is here, to her credit. She walked the streets and got the neighbors to voice their opinion. We put a map together that showed the people that are supportive. Now, this is uncomfortable for me because, quite honestly, it's the first time I've ever had a large group of neighbors, 82 supporters, support me and oppose staff. It's very unusual for me, so I'm a little uneasy right here. But the neighbors are it's very clear to the neighbors that they believe that the most appropriate land use at this location is what we are proposing as opposed to a more dense residential project. So really the issue at hand, after talking with staff, and staff has indicated in their staff report and in their presentation that they believe residential is appropriate, it's what density? And so we ask ourselves, what is the appropriate density at this location? The property owner believes that this hybrid type density at about 7 units to the acre of single family detached home is the appropriate density. All the neighbors, 100% of the neighbors who are adjacent to this site think that we're right. We also have supportive businesses to the south that want to see this project move forward. So we presented this plan and continued to work with staff over the last month. On Thursday of last week, we received a staff report, and several new issues that weren't raised were addressed and brought forward that we scrambled and tried to address. The commission or the board identified them in their study session, so we scrambled and changed our plan to try to address these concerns and these issues. And let's let's talk about the changes we have made since your study session yesterday. First off, you'll see on the plan that we have added 13 surface 90-degree parking spaces in this location. We've added an additional 5 up in this location. I think that's 7. I can't remember. But additional spaces up here by the open space area, additional spaces here, and additional spaces here. Keeping in mind that these are public streets. This street system that winds through this project is a public street, just like all the public streets throughout the city of Mesa. It's a big, wide, paved street that allows parking on both sides. So with the parking that is allowed on both sides of the public street, plus these little enclaves of parking, we are parked at a 3.3 parking rate. Now, we've had a lot of discussion with staff about the magic 3.0 number. And we looked at the code and, parking is permitted in areas where refuse, trash barrels go. You know, just like in front of all of our homes, you can park there, but on trash day, you can't park there. And so what we tried to identify is all the red dots here are where parking would be allowed 5 days a week, and we would sign it, but not allowed during refuse day. If you take out the red dots, we're parked at 3.0. So we think we have a ton of parking within this project, not to mention the 2-car garage that each one of these units have. We have a substantial amount where if you include all the parking and all the surface parking, we're well over the 3.0. We're at 3.3. So we think we've addressed that and tried to accommodate that as best as we can. This is unlike a lot of the other developments that have gone through where you see very limited parking. You go to see your family on a Sunday afternoon and you can't find a parking space. This has 1.3 guest parking spaces per unit. So that's the most, that's a substantial amount of units. At the study session, the pool area or the open space on the north side was also brought up. What we did is we reoriented the pool and pulled it south, as you can see, close up to the road. And then we moved structures and open space and little play areas back here to provide a buffer between the pool and the property line to pull it away. So that way, when the kids are in the pool playing, there'll be a big distance between them and the neighbors' backyards. I wanted to utilize the area. You just don't want it to go to waste. We still have some play areas back in here for kids to play in. But we think that it's going to be a compatible use to have a play area next to somebody's backyard where their kids are playing. We think it's a good compatible use. So we think that's a good way to address that situation. So having said all that, we would like your support of this project with some tweaks. And I'm prepared to discuss stipulations now, or maybe I wait till after the neighbors talk, come back up, and we'll talk some conditions of approval and what we think might be some suggested changes should this board think that it is appropriate land use here and decide to move it forward to the City Council. Thank you.
Does any of the board members have questions for the applicant? No? Okay, let's hear from the speakers. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go back to the first one. Thomas
Barnhart.
Okay,
sorry.
Harl.
My scribbling.
Please state your name, your address.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes.
I am opposed to the residential there.
Name and address I have to have on the record. Thank you.
7315 East Forge Avenue in Mesa.
It's Thomas Barnhart.
It's Barnhart, Barnhart, Thomas.
Oh, it's a T. Okay, you never crossed your T. There.
I think it was Mr. Akita's pen that he gave me that
didn't cross.
Not me.
It ran out right then. Okay, please continue. Thank you.
I'm opposed to housing there, and I just think that fronting housing on a 6-lane busy street is not really the best way to go. It's between 2 commercials, post office on one end and gasoline station on the other end, and of course our residential subdivision behind it. I've attended the 2 meetings that Mr. Lake held, and I've made my feelings known. It appeared that in the last meeting, they said that it was either housing or they were going to build apartments, 4-story apartments. Now, if you were the people that lived there, you certainly wouldn't want 4-story apartments to look at. I think that would be terrible for the people living there. I'm absolutely opposed to 4-story apartments going there. They wouldn't look right from Southern Avenue, nor would they look right from our subdivision. But I just think that we have limited light commercial in that area. I believe that if it hadn't been for the overbuilding of builders, which they all normally do in boom times, and the recessions we've had for the last 8 years or so, I believe this small amount of property would have been built out by now. And true, there's buildings available that people could move if they're vacant, but maybe some business needs a particular piece of raw ground to build their particular building on, and maybe it wouldn't fit in the buildings that are available. So when you take away the buildings that are, or the land that is available now for them to build on by zoning houses on it or apartments on it, then where do they go for building? I think the highest and best use of that land is still light commercial, but to build apartments on it, I think Mr. Lake was trying to scare the people into getting behind his housing project, and I'm opposed to that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Valora Behringer. Please state your name and your address. The microphone, please. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Valora Behringer, and I live at 7311 East Flower Avenue in Mesa, and I'm one of those neighbors. And when we first purchased our house in 2008, it was going to be the shopping center, a strip center, something like that going in there, and we were comfortable with that. I understand that that's not the best use of that property, and that single-family homes may be the best use, but I'm very much against the apartments and looking at any 3- or 4-story apartments. They will not improve our property values, and now that our values are starting to really stabilize and come back, I would hate to see that hurt our values. There are other many areas in the East Mesa that would be improved by putting apartments in there instead of declining the area. And so I would recommend if it's necessary to put more apartments in East, maybe looking at a place that would be better off having apartments there. If our values do go down, which I believe they will, then that, of course, will affect the tax that the city and the county will get from our property values. Thank you.
Thank you. She prefers a single family. She doesn't want apartments. Okay, how about Ron Schopp? I'm not making this out. Is it Ron?
7335.
Okay. At least I got a guy's name out of it.
Not really.
Please state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Cecil Schob. I live at 7335 East Flower Avenue. And no, I didn't fill that out. Mesa, Arizona. I want to say that I'm totally opposed of any type of apartment unit, whether it be single, 2-story, 3-story, 4-story, whatever you're going to put in there. I think it will lower the value of the property, and I think the letter I received from the city basically I felt that it was just a tax revenue generator and not really the best interest of the neighborhood. I don't believe that industrial buildings would do us any good in that area. One, we have so many vacant buildings in our area now that if you just drive the area, you can see what I'm talking about. I'm all for the single individual homes. I'd like to see maybe 71 or instead of 81, so not so crammed in there. But if 81 makes it more profitable for the contractors and the builders, then 81 would it be. And I think that's what we need to look at, and what will it do to the value of the properties that we have. I've been in there since 2002 and went up and down with the market, and our houses are also stabilizing. And I think if we went to apartment units, we'd just hurt ourselves. There are no, the city brought up of all the businesses around there that could use that type of workforce. I think if you look at the businesses, and there's a lot of them, like Parker and Son offices there, they probably have 15 people in it. You got LPG Construction, they have 20 people in their office. Not a big draw for working class people to walk into. Drive time was mentioned in a conversation. It's their credit department and stuff. They have some people, but they don't have thousands of people working there. There's a lot of businesses around there, but they're small businesses with very few employees when you think about malls or bigger companies. So I think that idea of walking to work that they proposed in one meeting, that's kind of a joke. It's Phoenix, Arizona. It's 115 degrees. They're not going to walk to work. So I didn't walk to work when I worked at the mall. So it doesn't happen. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Jamie Cloud. I hope that's even close.
That's very close.
Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
Jamie Cloud, 7413 East Florian Avenue. I do live at Superstition Springs, and my house is actually on the land that borders where they're planning to develop either the homes or the apartment complexes. So my backyard will be greatly affected by whatever's put back there. We bought our house with intent that we are going to stay there forever. Our plan is to retire there. I want to die there in that house. I'm very attached to our neighborhood and our neighbors. The thought of having an apartment complex in our backyard terrifies me. My grandson plays in our backyard. I'm sorry. We have a dog that goes out in the backyard. If there were homes behind us, I feel like it would be different. Those people would have purchased their homes. They would have been invested in them. They would be there for the long haul. You'd get to know your neighbors. You'd have a relationship with them. And I would feel safe having my grandson in the backyard. I did go out myself, my husband, and some of our neighbors went with me, talked throughout the neighborhood, and we did have a petition signed. There are 81 or 82 signatures from other people in the neighborhood that feel the same way as I do, that we definitely think that the homes would be a better fit for us. So we hope that you guys will vote that way.
Thank you very much. Okay, this would be Mr. Jostin. Please state your name and your address. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Bob Justin, 1010 South Terrapin Circle, Mesa. I'm in part of the association there. I am a member of the board of SSCMA. As far as the association is concerned, we would just as soon see single-family homes setting up in there. The density, we would like the other gentleman said, if we could cut this thing down. We did see some of the things that we were talking about, like the pool being moved. The other concern was the 3 access coming across Southern, going into there with the 6 lanes. We're a little bit concerned about that. And as far as we're concerned, if they were looking at, which might not be any concern here, having their own association, they would have to run that through our board, and I don't think that would fit. And much less the pool, I don't think our association would be in favor of the pool at all because of the liability that would be concerned that we, as the association, would probably have to take care of, since there would not be a lifeguard there for the hours that was open. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions of staff or applicant? Is there any discussion?
Yeah,
You do?
call.
What is it, Michelle?
I was just going to ask, I heard
Who's the question for?
probably Mr. Wesley, ultimately. I heard from one of the surrounding, I believe one of the neighbors, that a letter was sent out from the city regarding this. Was there a letter sent out from the city regarding this property, or was it most likely letters of notification? Or yeah, please.
Anybody that has the answer, come on up.
It just sounded like that somebody was upset about a letter that the city wrote regarding a taxing thing, and I didn't think the city sent anything out regarding this property.
The city did not send a letter out to the neighborhood. We provided at our neighborhood meeting and people that we invited to the neighborhood meeting a copy of the letter from Bill Jabjiniak to the city saying that the city would prefer to see multifamily, multi-story workforce housing.
Okay.
So we provided the copy of that letter.
Okay, so secondly, Mr. Wesley, was in the pre-application meeting, was any of the concerns about the current general plan, who was part of the pre-application meeting? Who could I address this question to?
Madam Chair, Board Member Assel, Mr. Ellsworth handles the pre-application meetings.
Okay.
This staff's position really came down to a general plan question and whether or not we felt that it met the general plan. So that's what our recommendation went with. We've been, we were kind of on the fence as this plan was going through. We have had discussions with Mr. Lake about the concerns about the general plan. So we never fully committed that we were in support of this from the very
Initially,
beginning.
Okay. I was just curious as to whether or not some of those concerns were addressed up front or not, or if they knew that this was going to be something that most likely would arrive at a denial from the initial discussions. I was wondering if that was addressed.
Board Member Assel, it was always a possibility
Yeah.
as we worked through site plan issues and just the general plan. We have a very new general plan, and
Yeah.
we need to take a hard look at that and how it applies to each property.
And Mr. Lakes, is it Lakes?
Lake.
Lake. Mr. Lake, have you had a chance to educate some of the surrounding neighbors about the general plan? Approved, of course, voted into position that plan. Have they had the chance to understand maybe why that the plan set up the way it is, and why staff may not like or feel maybe a different option might be better for the community there?
We have discussed the general plan. We have discussed staff's position and economic development's letter from Mr. Jabjiniak. As far as the general plan, we believe we can be consistent with the general plan, which does allow, without a general plan amendment, what we are proposing. With the zoning case, we think it really comes down to compatibility with the neighborhood. That's always the issue that we're discussing. When we were trying to do a project here, we felt this was a good compromise. If I came in here and tried to do an apartment project, I'd have a room full of angry people shooting darts at me in the back. But that would be a very difficult situation for me, and say, but it's compliance with the general plan, but then they'd be saying, but it's not compatible with our neighborhood. So it's a very delicate line that you try to walk. We think, a typical residential subdivision, single family, is at about 3 units to the acre. Staff is talking 10 to 12, and I think maybe more. A workforce, multifamily, multi-story housing can go up to 18, 19 that we've routinely seen approved here in the city. We think at 7 units to the acre, we're getting some of the density that the city would like to see and some of that affordability. With the homes that we're talking about here, we can sell, and people that are making $42,000 to $45,000 can buy these homes. They can afford these homes here. That, to me, is the workforce that we would like to target and see at this location. If it increased in density, the apartments across the street that are at about 18, directly across the street, that are about 18 units to the acre, 17, 18 units to the acre, their rents are about $1,100 to $1,300 a month. We think we can sell a home and have somebody have a mortgage payment around that. So we think we're providing that workforce type housing at a compromised density where the neighbors are happy and everybody feels that this is compatible with our neighbors, but trying to accomplish that a little higher density and more affordability of what the city was trying to see. That's kind of our position on that.
Is that good?
Can I?
Anything else? And then, Michelle, did you have a comment?
Yes. Just a few comments, not specifically to you, Mr. Lake, but you're more than welcome to stand there just in case. I just wanted to say that I'm leaning towards recommending approval because of a few things. The neighbors in support, that's pretty impressive that so many people came out in favor of this project. I appreciate that you added the guest parking. That was a big concern of mine at the beginning, but I think that you did a great job. You're actually providing, sounds like, a few more spaces than are required. I think even though this type of project is different, I think a lot of people aren't used to it, especially here in the Phoenix metro area. It really seems to be appropriate for a certain segment of our society, and whether it's just the density, it's not quite too dense, as you were saying, it's affordable. You have some of your, some private space of your own, but kind of a feel of a community. So I think it's a good transition and an appropriate type of development. So my only question would be to the staff is how detailed would we have to be in our recommendation in terms of saying that we think that this is appropriate given your concerns with the general plan? Because it looks like in your conclusion, you said we have to determine that the specific proposal is appropriate for the neighborhood or for this location and will serve to strengthen the adjacent residential and community neighborhoods.
Madam Chair, Board Member Dalkey, I believe it by the board deciding that this, with their recommendations of, if the recommendation is for approval, I think it's clear that you found that this project meets that qualification.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Lake, just on the other side, dealing with multifamily, you know, by the way, I appreciate the comments that have already been shared here, and I feel very similarly the same way. But to provide some clarity, did you reach out to any multifamily developers? Would they even like this site? Is it big enough? Does it work for them in terms of its configuration? Despite the fact that the neighborhoods don't want it, neighbors don't want it, would it work?
Chairman, board member, Clement, the multifamily, we represent a lot of developers and have in Mesa for a very, very long time. I've done dozens of multifamily projects in the city of Mesa. So I did reach out to some of the brokers that we typically deal with, because I'm not going to get somebody from Spanos to come look at this project or you know, some of the other developers, that apartment builders. But I did reach out to some of the brokers and talk to them, and their response was, no. And then I showed them the site, and I said, okay, help me here, because they're looking at apartments. The problem that we see with this site from an apartment standpoint or a multifamily project is it's very wide, but not very deep. And so if you were to site plan and try to get the type of density you would typically associate with a multifamily project, it would be very difficult. You'd have to push it back. And staff had indicated in their staff report that they would like to see multifamily because it would be pushed back away from Southern. Well, when you push it back away from Southern and you have a not very deep site, you're pushing it closer and closer up to the north boundary line where the neighbors are. So I would, if you tried to design a multifamily, you'd be caught between a rock and a hard place. Literally, where you're trying to push it away from Southern and then you're trying to push it away from the neighbors in an already very shallow site. It would be very difficult and challenging. That was kind of the response that I got back from one of the brokers who we've dealt with many, many times on multifamily projects. I'm not against multifamily projects. I've done lots of multi-projects. Let me go on record. I support multifamily projects. KB is not a multifamily developer. KB is under contract and wants to purchase this property and build this project. We think this is a very reasonable use of this property. And at some point, you know, I think the city needs to step back to the property owner and say, okay, we've held you out for commercial for 40 years. You've gone through so many cycles of development. I think Mr. Juviginiak in his letter even agreed that, yeah, okay, residential is appropriate. So then the question is, what density is of residential is appropriate? The property owner, KB, and you saw the map of all the stars. All the neighbors that are adjacent to this site think that this is a good, reasonable use of the property, and that's why we're here proposing that. And when you're ready to talk conditions of approval, I'll be prepared for that too.
Okay, was there any other questions here?
No, I'm just going to make a comment that I would agree with Mr. Lake's assessment. I think the development there would be a lot more preferable and more desirable than some of the other developments that have been suggested, like the multi-story residential and the commercial. And for some of those reasons, I would be in favor of this development, and that's probably how I'm going to be voting.
I do have a question for staff real quick here. One of the other concerns that we were having was the setbacks and how close these properties were together. And you said that the applicant made some changes to the second floor to stop the canyon effect. Could you explain that a little bit more to us?
Madam Chair, the setbacks between the homes there's been a couple other projects similar to this in Mesa recently in the last year. We're seeing some of them built. A lot of the discussion has been that these homes are 5 feet apart on the rear, which doesn't really function as their rear yard. Their side yard functions more as their activity area. But it does put these 2-story homes very close together. When you look down between those homes, you just see these long walls of homes. So that discussion we had about breaking up that second floor, and there is a condition of approval that speaks to that about not having more than 55% of the wall within that 10 feet. That's to help break up the second floor footprint of the home so that you don't have that entire second. The bottom floor footprint doesn't go straight up. You're not going to end up with a box of a home. You're going to actually break it up with that second floor and provide some relief so that you could provide some variation in that view as you go down, break up that canyon effect.
So that was an acceptable solution to staff?
Staff still has concerns about the rear setback. I don't think that's necessarily gone away. So we'll leave it up to the board to determine if the 5 foot is appropriate. That's what this applicant has shown on his site plan. That's what's been approved on those 2 other projects. I think we're going to continue to have concern about that to provide additional space between those. We want these to be communities that are sustainable long term, that they're nice places to live and they stay a nice place to live. So that's our concern.
Your comment?
And Leslie, you touched on I guess my comments that I said in the study session yesterday. That my main concern is the sustainability of the development. And while I think that actually I would like to see less homes, I would like to see it not as dense as it is now. That's just my personal preference. I don't think, my personal opinion, I don't think apartments are appropriate for that area, but I would like to see more open space. And I'm concerned, the use and benefit easements, I'm not a big fan of the use and benefit easements. I think that, and I don't know that, hopefully whoever buys these properties will understand what they are and understand the challenges that come with it. I do appreciate you providing more parking spaces because that was a huge issue for me. But just in a perfect world, if I was able to see it, I would see more space between the buildings. That's not necessarily what we're looking at today. So those are just some of my concerns that I have. So I just want to let you know.
Okay. I guess what our choices are is we can deny this per staff recommendation. We can approve it with conditions, or we can continue this until these conditions are worked out a little bit better. So I think those are our options. How does the board feel about all this?
Go ahead.
Why don't we discuss, I don't know, do we want to vote first whether we approve it and then discuss?
No, I'm just saying that if you have the option also of continuing this until this list looks like something that's we can more understand. There's so many conditions here. That's like a red flag right there.
I guess continued. For me, that would be my recommendation as well, because there are 21 or 22 conditions of approval. I would like to see us. What's that?
Just, Madam Chair, if I may, I'm not sure there's too much we can do to really pare down the number of steps in here. We could maybe get rid of a couple of a few little design things, but most, I think, even if we come back, you're going to see pretty much the same number.
Okay,
just the nature of the development is going to require some.
Which one? What opinion?
What's that as far as the stipulations?
What was the issues you had about the stipulations you wanted to mention?
As presented by staff.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. First, I was remiss, and I want to put something on the record because I don't want the neighbors to turn on me. we agreed with the neighbors that we would have single-story homes along that north side with the exception of those 2 lots. But we also increased the setback along that north side. So as shown on the site plan, it's 10 and 15 feet and the single-story home. So I want to make sure that that goes on the record because you're talking 5 feet, and I could hear some back behind me, and I'm thinking, oh, no, they think we've gone back on our word. So I want to clarify on the record that we're not going back on that. We still have single-story homes that we presented to them and along that north side, which we think is a good buffer in people's backyards. The homes are 5-foot side yard, but that's 10 feet in between. It's just like a normal R16 that would be a 5 and 10, and you'd have 2 5s next to each other. So it's not unheard of. As far as the conditions of approval, condition number 15. The concern we have with the standard detail, we're not opposed to labeling the locations. In fact, we have labeled on our site plan the location of where the trash barrels will be stored. We support and agree with that. The standard detail calls out that we have to address each of those barrel locations. That's great when you talk in theory, but as recently as last month, we had the city of Mesa call us and tell us that they were changing the addresses on already approved lots that we have within Higley and Brown. We had the same situation at Power and Guadalupe. So I go through, put the infrastructure, I label these addresses, and then the city says, you know what, based upon something, we're changing the addresses. Now I got to go tear out curb and re-pour and readdress. Otherwise, you tell a guy, yeah, your address is 2705, but really you're 2707 because the city changed your address, and you're trying to explain it away. Our solution to that is to label the curb with either a trash or an A, B, C. So, you know, your home, the first home in the 6-pack is A, the second's B, the third's C, and so that you understand your trash spot is C. So we're just trying to avoid some expense. We know it happens. We're just trying to avoid that. Unless the city's willing to tear out the street and
can I
replace it
ask
for
you
us.
something really quick? I personally have not read M-62.06 of the City of Mesa Standard Details. I am remiss there. I apologize. But what does that say?
I have it right in front of me.
Great.
Basically, it says each unit must have a predetermined location for a minimum of 2 barrels per unit where street park, and I just got this today, by the way, yesterday, where each street parking is prohibited from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on collection days, which is the parking spaces we talked about that we would sign. Barrels shall have a designated location on the street with a permanent marking on the curbing identifying address or unit number to show all barrel locations with addresses on site plan for visibility triangles referred to 2012 or latest version of the engineering design standards.
So you could use the lot number, and that would achieve that, correct?
The lot number or...
Madam Chair, this board has no authority to modify the standard details.
No, I was just concerned. He's saying A, B, C, and D.
Right.
So it has to be an
So it sounds like
address.
that could meet it, but they're going to have to meet the standard detail. This isn't the way to modify the standard detail.
So I'm just trying to find out, when he wanted A, B, C, or D, that's not consistent with it?
It sounds to me like it could be, but that's not our call.
Okay, so as long as we put in even if change I guess that item 15 with your added area, it still has to say at the end per M16 or 62.06 at the end.
We believe it's important for that to be in there.
And that we can take his preferred language as long as it's got that addition on the end.
And I just want to go on the record on the address, that address issue. I don't want to be ripping curbs out.
We're talking about permanent painted
No, they're
markings.
talking stamped in concrete.
Right.
I'm happy to paint it. I'll paint it all day, and when they change the address, I'll go out with more paint and paint over the top of it. I can do that all day long if that's okay.
And as I understand it, 20 was acceptable, the change, as long as approximately was taken out? Is that correct?
Our thoughts on that one, we believe with the parking spaces as shown with the 3.3, including where we can park 5 days a week, we well exceed, so we shouldn't have a problem, assuming the commission believes that's the understanding.
So approximately would be out but all your language will be introduced into this. And then 21, what was he wants it removed?
That was the one where it was parking spaces within 150 feet. Staff has represented to us that they've measured it, and we comply. If that's okay, we're okay with that as long as staff.
Leave it in.
Yeah, as long as staff says, yeah, you complied, we're fine. I'm not going to argue against something I already comply with.
Okay, and the last one you added is really a commitment. It's not really a condition. You're saying the homeowners association shall maintain all 90-degree parking spaces, but it becomes a condition. You'll have to maintain them. It's on the homeowner's property or homeowners association's property. So that would be 22. Is there any other items that the board or the staff thinks it needs to be modified with the blue changes besides those?
Madam Chair, I don't believe so. Did you have something, John?
I just want to make sure that we're clear on 15. Your suggestion go with the applicant's version, but add in at the end?
Yes.
Consistent
per
with
M-62.06, the end of the City of Mesa standard details.
We can go with staffs on that one, to be honest with you. As long as the understanding's fine, we can go with staff on that one. Sorry to change it up. I just want to go on record on that address change.
Let's just remove applicant's comments from 15 and accept the staff's proposed condition number 15.
The whole thing, the whole condition?
All 15 stands as the city had it.
So they will be
Staff put it.
stamped?
Say just like that. It has to be for that. Okay. Is there anyone that's ready to make a motion or has any other considerations?
I'll give it a try and get before approval. Would that be okay?
You make any motion you feel is right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we approve. Give me a second here. Terrence Wall and the Arizona Real Estate Fund, LLC, the owners, their application for their rezone from LC PAD to PAD to RSL-2.5-PAD PAD and their site plan review, along with their associated conditions of approval, except for item number 15. Is that correct?
No.
Is that it? Line 15?
You just add as amended.
As amended.
As amended. On line 15 and
15 will remain unchanged. And 20 will provide for the applicant's changes without the word approximately. 21 will remain, and 22 will be added per the applicant's changed revisions.
Okay, thank you. And as written in case number Z15-026 in District 5.
Is that an acceptable motion? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Passes unanimously.
What about the
Madam Chair.
plat?
He said, and also the associated site plan.
You need the preliminary plat, so that can be a second.
Okay, read. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Please, somebody give a motion, perhaps, for this associated plat.
Oh, there's a back. Oh.
Make it.
And I would make a motion that we approve the associated plat for Southern and Sossaman District 5, 7400 through the 7600 block of East Southern, for with the recommendation of approval.
Along with those conditions of approval discussed with those revisions.
With the conditions of approval that was on the previous case, Z15-026, as read into the record.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Please vote. Mine's not, okay.
There we go.
Shelley?
Oh, I thought he did. Sorry.
Okay, that unanimous is passed. We also need a motion to adjourn the meeting if there's no other business.
I would make a motion that we adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.